Education still remains the engine room for the growth and development of any nation, including Nigeria. Therefore, it becomes imperative to look at the challenges and way forward for education in Nigeria. Globally, countries of the world continually sought to improve the quality of our education, particularly developing countries. Nigeria is not left out. There has been a radical shift towards achieving quality education for its citizens. This includes Students' Education Loan Act. Funding of higher education remains a challenge in Nigeria. In a bid to find a lasting solution to this challenge, the administration of President Bola Tinubu announced a student loan scheme which seeks to liberalize funding of education. Our Rice correspondent Mary Chinda takes a look at the students' loan and long-standing challenges of funding public tertiary education in the country.
Fresh subsidy is gone.
It all began with the famous subsidy must go statement on May 29th. The attendant consequence was an initial rise in utility bills and tuition fees in some public universities, including the University of Lagos. Students at the University of Benin also registered their protest over an increase in school fees. It is to address the perennial funding challenge of the educational sector, which had forced lecturers to down tools time without number, that the government announced the rolling out of a student loan initiative with about 5 billion naira earmarked for it. With the document not yet in public domain, the Minister of State for Education describes the scheme as brilliant and innovative and in line with President Tinubu's renewed hope agenda.
Mr. President came up when he came in, the student loan board was signed into law, and also the act become operational with injection of fund in the last appropriation budget to allow the access by students of Nigeria. Mr. President also noticed that there are a lot of concern expressed by stakeholders, especially in the educational field in Nigeria, concerning how difficult it may likely be to access the loan by students. And to that end, Mr. President constituted a powerful committee that is currently working to address all the bottlenecks as raised by Nigerians.
But education experts share their thoughts about the 5 billion naira students' loan scheme.
The government should be commended for initiating the student loan scheme. It is done in several parts of the world. I've said that. It is beneficial because those who could not go to universities because of lack of funds will now do what? Go to university on loan. And the government would benefit from that because when you have an educated workforce, it's an advantage to the government.
We've not really been able to create that safe environment to make repayment of loans an easy one. I mean, it's even like a sort of a challenge now, them taking that loan, because when you take the loan without any means of paying back, it's going to further stress your family to know that, all of a sudden with this policy, we'll just find ourselves being destabilized financially.
Chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, shares his reservation.
Our union idea, we have expressed it very clearly. We don't believe that it should be a student loan scheme. It should be student grant for the children of the very poor who cannot afford to pay the fee, especially with this present fuel subsidy removal and the backlash.
And it appears the modalities around the student loan scheme is not all that the universities have to worry about. The 25% increase in salaries of academic staff, the scuffles around the payment of part of withheld ASU members' salaries are some of the challenges university lecturers are burdened with.
ASU would prefer a negotiated salary increase, which is as recommended by ILO. And that is when we should not wait award. And we have actually done that with the last regime, but they refused to sign. So our hope is that this regime will look at that particular agreement and sign it in line with ILO and all labor laws.
The now rescinded directive for higher institutions to remit 40% of their revenue to the federal government against the backdrop of a long-standing issue of underfunding of the public tertiary institutions is also another source of concern to education experts.
It has never been a case of the tertiary education funding the government. It cannot work. Can it work? Not to talk of 40%. As I told you, I've been a vice chancellor. Now, the third fund or NUC had to go and pay the electricity bill for Amadu Bello some months ago. It happened. And that is the same take in all the universities. The amount of money given to university administration for utilities and so on barely covers 1 month for those electricity, water, and so on.
All the money paid by student universities are for particular purpose. Money paid for ID card, money paid for laboratory chemical, money paid for examinations. They are not revenue generating agencies. Therefore, asking to pay 40%, you want to further strangle the universities.
Nigeria's budgetary allocation for education has over the years been negligible, with only 8% budgetary allocation to education in 2023. Experts say the future looks bleak for education in the country.
We are the one actually suffering. When you go around and you can find out our members are stressed and many are dying. You saw a colleague come and die OAU just 2 days ago. And God, this one, in those days, a lecturer will go on 3 months leave every year to go and refresh and come back. But we have sacrificed all those leave for those months we didn't teach during the strike. So, haven't done our own part. The government should do its part in the interest of Nigerian population and Nigerian children.
As the year 2023 draws to a close and the federal government proposes a 26 trillion naira budget for 2024, it is hoped that education will receive increased budgetary allocation, at least to curb the increasing number of out-of-school children, which now breeds insecurity, and as at May 2023 stood at over 20 million persons, according to the United Nations Children Emergency Fund. Mary Chinda, Arise News.
Joining us now on the show is Honorable Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, Nigeria's Minister of State for Education and former member of House of Representatives and former chairman, House of Representative Committee on Healthcare Services in the 9th and 10th Assembly. Great to have you. I'd like to talk to you about something very important, which is, number one, the framework and the modalities for the student loans. It is still very nebulous to a lot of Nigerians out there. How is it going to be administered? Has the education bank been set up? What are the laws around defaults? How much can anybody withdraw or any student apply for? Tell us everything about it, sir.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me into your morning programs. And my correct name there is not Sunu, it's Sununu.
Sununu,
S-U-N-U-N.
My apologies,
yes,
sir. Sununu. Yes. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And I must also commend you for trying to all efforts to enlighten Nigerians. I quite believe, that I was at a UNESCO meeting, and right now I'm also out of the country. But you have persistently reaching out to me to come and make this a very elaborate discussion to the benefit of Nigerians. And I think that is what information is all about. Information is power. And we'll continue, as directed by the president, to keep Nigerians informed of the activities of the administration. Well, as you know, I had made mention earlier in the interview that I granted, which was also aired immediately before this discussion, that when the president came, the National Assembly has already passed the student bill loan board bill that was sponsored by the chief of staff and many other House of Rep members, and it was also assented by the president immediately when he came into office. And once you have an act, the act is just a framework that will is a legal backing that will ask you or allow you to develop a framework or policy that will guide the implementation of that act. Act cannot be totally or 100% addressing all issues. It must give gap to where administrators can come in and develop a policy. But that policy must drive its power from the act. And exactly that is what happened. Now, after the act has been signed, the next thing is to see that the act become operational, and it becomes operational really by submitting to National Assembly a budget line that can be used to fund the loan by student. Now, after that is also being done, what is now the modality we are working on is to see how do we develop the framework that would be acceptable to Nigerians. As you know, even you one time you were involved in that discussion, that there are a lot of hindrances and bottleneck that will make it difficult for some students to access the loan. And that is now, Mr. President went ahead to constitute a powerful committee with Chief of Staff, who was also the main sponsor of the bill when it was when he was in the National Assembly, to see now how can we address. We are in a democratic setting, and Mr. President, as you all know, is a Democrat par excellence, and he listens a lot to what people are saying, and he's much concerned about development of in the country. So hearing a lot of concern expressed by Nigeria in terms of making it quite difficult for students to access the loan as so far. So the committee was mandated to go ahead and work out the modalities that will allow and enable students to access the loan. And just yesterday, also a few days ago, the Chief of Staff to the President, Right Honorable Femi Bajabianila, was at one of the pre-convocation lectures at the Yaba College of Technology. I made it clear that you don't need to know anybody for you to access the fund. It's going to be online. Student will apply online. It will be processed online. All that is needed will also be processed online, so that you can access what is also and it can easily be dispensed to you. So all the bottlenecks are being addressed. And let me also add that that is not only the opportunity for easier education or easy education in Nigeria. We have also federal scholarship that have been granted scholarship. Even this year, scholarship was granted, and next year also it was also in the budget line of the ministry. And in terms of our dealings, we also look at teacher education. It's also very, very vital in our dealings. We have come up with a policy that about 5,000 teachers will be given through the federal scholarship, a scholarship grant that will allow them to continue to pursue this because their educational career. Because what we are having now, all over there is teacher crisis, and in Nigeria it's getting worse because a lot of people consider teaching as last resort to employment, and therefore we have to see how we can increase some modalities that will enable students to go and pursue their educational career in order to have a quality teacher. Because there is no way we can improve on the access and quality of education if we don't have qualitative teachers. So as far as the issue of student loan board is concerned, the bottleneck are going to be been addressed, and I assure you that by January, Nigerians will have all the details, and the Nigerian student will begin to access the loan. The amount will all be decided as these are all policy statements that the committee are working to see, and I don't think it will be proper for me to preempt them. But I want to assure Nigerians that Mr. President is concerned about the future of education of Nigeria, and the committee is working tirelessly to ensure that it comes up with a modality of accessing the loan that is going to be acceptable by average stakeholder in education and virtually all Nigerians.
Okay. Well, still on the loan. Section 5 of the Access to Higher Education Act talks about an 11-man committee which will be chaired by the governor of the central bank to manage the fund. Has that committee been set up yet as part of implementing what the law says? And then the source of funding for that student loan is to come from 1% of this, 1% of that, statutory bodies, including the FIRS. But it also talks about donations, charities. Has the ministry seen anybody donating or signaling interest in donating to this students' loan scheme?
Mr. Ruben Abadi, I will humbly and respectfully welcome you to my office so that we can also receive your own donation. But virtually, what is there is we have to have a legal framework that will allow collaborations so that people will know that what they are doing is according to the law. And that's why that aspect is also given, so that people can now come and donate. You see, it's not only in health. Even when I was chairman House Committee on Health, when we developed the aspect of National Health Insurance Scheme, initially you cannot go and give your money. But we came out with provisions that individual can go, give your money, specified number of people you want to enjoy to be covered with that loan, and you can track it timely. And that is also what is reflected in the student loan. You can go and specify from which region, from which tribe, from which aspect of the society you want to fund. And you can come at any time to access on timeline basis who have utilized your fund, and you can also you are also free at your own will to call them and inquire how easy was it to them to get the funding which you have sponsored. So you see, if you look at it, inclusivity is one of the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, so that everybody will now be a brother's keeper, and that's why that aspect of collaboration is given at this thing. It's just say that we all agree that the government cannot do it alone. And the only way we can address the issue is to see how can we open up people, both locally, nationally, and internationally, to come and collaborate. And let me tell you one thing, even before now you find that, go to a member of the House of Assembly, you find a lot of House of Assembly members are also issuing scholarship to their constituencies. I have done that. Yeah.
Okay, real quickly, I want to talk about the issue of that 40% of revenue that these university lecturers and schools have been kicking against. Can you just clarify that area quickly in about a minute?
Well, in 1 minute, I'll just say that we also, at the level of the ministry, we have tried to also communicate directly to the finance ministry to tell them the implications of the policy as far as the issue is concerned. And then we are waiting for their responses, which have formally communicated to them. Definitely, education needs to be funded very well. And the complaint of Nigerians that are taking 40% of internally generated revenue by university can serve a lot of bottleneck in terms of progress of the university, because most of those services that are being termed as revenue generations are services to be rendered to students. So the investors are complaining that if you take away 40% of it, it may not be likely possible for them to even provide those services to the student. So this is also being considered too, and I'm sure Mr. President is monitoring development, and definitely at the level of ministry, we have already communicated to the finance our positions, and also my minister too has made a statement regarding to that just about 4 or 5 days ago.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister of State for Education, Dr. Tanko Sununu. Thank you for joining us on the Morning Show. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Dr. Dele Ashiru, former chairman, University of Lagos chapter of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, for his views on improving the quality of education in Nigeria with reference to the Students' Loan Scheme. Stay with us. For more on the discussion on Nigeria's education system and the Students' Loan Act, we're now being joined by Dr. Dele Ashiru, former chairman of the University of Lagos chapter of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, for his views. Dr. Ashiru, thank you for joining us. Well, we've been discussing...
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, we've been discussing the Students' Loan Act otherwise called Access to Higher Education Act, Students' Loan Scheme, with the Minister of State for Education, Dr. Tanko Sununu. Well, we'd like to have your views on that, and also where we are with all those issues with the federal government. ASU had to suspend the strike in October last year, but I know that President Tinubu has been very generous. He has increased salary. He has said arrears should be paid all the way till back to January, and that the money that was not paid during the strike, academics should be given back part of the money that they work for. All of those issues, quickly.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Abati. It's nice being on the show once again. Let me first say that those who make policies for the education system in Nigeria do so upon very wrong assumptions. Let me start with the students' loan, access to higher education. We are in a country where it is assumed that individuals should pay to be educated. In serious societies, in societies that are making progress, education is considered as a public good. And if Nigeria so thinks, because if you are educated, you are not only educated for yourself and for your family, you are educated to help society grow, to help society develop. The problem with funding education in Nigeria is that government is not serious about funding education. Rather than fund education, they prefer to spend money on some frivolities. And that's why we think that what government needs to do is to consciously fund education from the primary to the tertiary level. The societies that are doing that are reaping bountifully from the successes which a literate, an educated society gets from such venture. Concerning the issues surrounding our life track action, it's unfortunate that we had, representatives of government in the ancient regime who are enemies of the Nigerian people as well as of education. The invocation of the no work, no pay rule is now paying out to nothing because all the works have been done, students have graduated, and they are moving on with their lives. As we agreed at the last National Executive Council meeting of our union, we are hoping that the President Bola Tinubu administration will resolve all outstanding issues surrounding that strike so that normalcy can return to the Nigerian university system. The arrears promised by President Bola Tinubu is yet to be paid. The increases that are announced, we are yet to receive. University teachers are the ones subsidizing university education as we speak. All the promises, paved arrears, the award of increases, etc., are all as we have had them on the pages of newspapers and on television as I speak to you. There's no Nigerian lecturer that has received any, financial advancement consequent upon those pronouncements. The issue with our union is that we don't take wage award from government. Our union believes in the principle of collective bargaining as prescribed by the International Labour Organization, to which Nigeria is a signatory. And let me say that you are bound by the conditions of service when you are joining an organization. But moving forward, changes in those conditions must be by collective bargaining. And we are hoping that in no too distant a future, the relevant agencies of government concerned with education in Nigeria will invite our union to conclude the renegotiation started under the last administration led by Professor Nime Briggs. The recommendations are there. Our union is willing to pick up those recommendations from there as a basis for negotiating with this government in terms of moving forward in the education system.
Real quickly, two issues. What will you say about CONWA? That is another union in the education sector that is taking all those almost opposing positions to ASU, which a lot of people touted was approved by the government to be able to checkmate ASU. What would you say about that? Secondly, what would you say about this 40% debacle? The Ministry of Finance is now saying they'll remove from the revenue that lecturers claim is not enough. The minister just said that, hey, we have reported to the Ministry of Finance. How much pressure are you guys going to put on this matter?
Well, let me start with the last question. There's a wrong assumption that universities are revenue-generating agencies. Unfortunately, those who administer the universities also fall into government trap by talking about IDR. Universities don't generate IDR. Universities collect obligatory fees for which services must be provided to students. Students pay for ID card, they pay for reagents, they pay for laboratories, etc. And a government wants to collect 40% of that. To do what with it? After failing in its own responsibility to be the major funder of that universities. So what we are simply saying is that it can work. We are happy that it's been reviewed. What we were told is that government had reversed itself, and that also tells you the quality of thinking that goes on at the highest level of government in Nigeria. You make a policy pronouncement today, you reverse yourself tomorrow. Why not look at the entire issues before making all of this policy flip-flop and policy somersault that has been, a major defining factor of the present administration? On Konwa, may be described as a child of necessity and a tool in the hands of Ngige, former Minister of Labour, and his erstwhile co-travelers, to divide ASU. I can assure you that ASU remains a leading trade union organization in the university system. And as I speak with you, the authenticity of another trade union within the university system is in doubt. And that's why you can see that their activities are still very, behind the scene and always antagonistic of our union.
Well,
we are hoping that in the near future, we can sort out our differences and then have a united trade union organization within the Nigerian university system.
Dr. Ashiru, would like to thank you very much. I get your point when you say universities are not revenue-generating units, but isn't it the fact that some universities run bakeries on the side, do water production, bottled water production on the side? In fact, some bakeries, some even have farms, from which they sell produce. Well, maybe that's what people have in mind, but thank you very much.
That's not what universities are meant for. They are doing so because government have abdicated its responsibilities of adequate funding of university education. Is there any university elsewhere in the world where they do bakery and sell bottled water?
Anyway,
universities sell ideas and knowledge,
thank you
not
very much.
bottled water and cocoyam, and bread and all the kind of things that we do here.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dele Ashiru of the University of Lagos.